Well, hello, wherever you are, and welcome to Truth Bomb Tuesday, where the power of choice is yours and yours alone. And I want to dive in here quickly. Excuse the drilling. I have someone drilling in the background and someone singing, which is quite interesting. So a lot of noise in the background, but I just wanted to let you know, if you don't already, that we've just moved into a beautiful time after this huge big full moon, where Mars is square Chiron on the 23rd, which is I think tomorrow, on Thursday. So you might be feeling the energy of this transit right now, or maybe you've been feeling it for a while, like I certainly have, as I came back from a beautiful time away where I really got to deepen into trusting women and receiving the love of so many beautiful women who really see me for who I am and all my sensitivities and all my quirks and love me anyway. And then the opposite of that, which is really looking at some of the old woundings that are coming up for me around betrayal and hurt and distrust with women in my past experiences. So for those of you who don't know, Chiron is known as the wounded healer, and I've spoken about him a lot. You'll find other videos about healing the wounded healer. This chironic wound on my YouTube channel. But just for today, know that he was known as the wounded healer. And whenever that sort of comes up in the astral planes for us to have another opportunity to go deeper into our woundings, Chiron is that energy for us. In Greek mythology, he was a centaur. He was half god, half horse. He was a very wise healer and a teacher. And one day, by mistake, one of his students, Hercules, shot him by mistake with a poisoned arrow in his thigh. And although Chiron was a wonderful healer, he couldn't heal himself. And I think that in itself is also a wonderful reminder that if you are showing up in the world of service and supporting other people on their growth and their evolution through alternative healing or some kind of healing arts, we're not very good, are we, at actually being able to see our own blind spots or actually ask for help. So, just like Chiron, we're not able to heal ourselves without the support of a community that is safe, that we can be vulnerable enough to ask for support. So with Chiron, he had this arrow wounding in his thigh, which again reminds us of our animal side, that we have soft animal bodies, and that we are part mortal, which is always very vulnerable. And we have a part that is very material, very physical. And Chiron reminds us of our immortality. So as long as part of us is made of matter, and we're in this sort of time of Saturn, we're always going to be vulnerable, and we need to really tap into our brave heart and move into more vulnerability, to open our hearts, to stay open to asking for support, to receiving energetic help from others, and not try to figure it out all on our own. So just like Chiron, remember that we're part animal and we're part mortal, which is the Saturn energy. We have the ring around Saturn. Either it's there to hold you and support you, or it can feel, when we're out of congruence or alignment, like it's a strong stranglehold, like it's literally choking the life out of us. And then we have this part that's very immortal and spiritual, which is Uranus. So ultimately, back to Chiron, the gods released Chiron from his suffering because Chiron had decided to trade places with Prometheus, which is a symbol for Uranus, for all of you that study astrology, who, as you can remember, was chained to a mountain. So the gods were really moved by his gesture and his generosity to be able to want to do that. And so they transformed him. Might get a little tongue-tied today. I've been talking a lot in sessions, so forgive me. But the gods transformed him into this beautiful constellation of Centaurus. So the moral of the story is it's only when we can really embrace our vulnerability, to be in flow and surrender to that we are human, and to remember our humanity, that we can start to heal and achieve our highest potential. And to achieve our highest potential, well, what does it look like in your life? Because it's of crucial importance that we truly, truly, truly embrace our mortality and use our small but mighty lives in a good way to make a difference in the world. And I think that's one thing that we all have in common, is that we want to leave this earth better than we found it, to know that we made a difference in some small way. And I think this is where spiritual bypassing can be very dangerous, because we're not embracing spirituality at all. If it's not, spirituality that's not rooted in our dark animal body wisdom, it kind of leads nowhere. We're kind of wandering around in the dark. And Chiron does just that. It helps us all to reconnect with our beautiful animal, the soft animal body that needs to feel in order to heal, and connect our body with our minds, to actually employ our minds in a good way to move us towards the matters that we are concerned about. And not only does Chiron sort of bring up this healing, but he only does it when we reconcile our animal, our instinctual side, our intuition, our gut knowing, our spidey senses with our sort of godly spiritual side. And if you kind of are feeling like that there's some shame coming up, or some resentment, or some guilt, or some regret, just embrace that part of yourself. Be gentle with yourself, because there's a gift in that. And the only way that we can start to activate our spiritual mission is by sort of truly embracing that sometimes we don't know what we don't know, and we're going to make mistakes, but they're just things we try on that actually grow and evolve us. So there's a gift in everything if we're just vulnerable enough, soft enough, kind enough to actually allow ourselves to receive the wisdom of that. And I wanted to speak about this today because I have been feeling my tender bits a lot over the last couple of weeks, and I know this too because I had some kind of virus, running through my veins, and a lot of very hot sweats and achy bones, and I was really feeling my tender bits as some of this old grief has started to form through me. And it's interesting because this always seems to happen in some way, shape, or form around my birthday. But I recognize that that this was surfacing, this wounded woman part of me, to bring my attention and my focus in a more loving way, in a gentler way, to look at some of my unresolved trauma patterns, some of these, what I call protective beliefs. They're not limiting. They were there to protect us when perhaps we didn't have our needs met, and we had to try and figure this all out on our own. But they were especially coming up around my past experiences where I have been betrayed and hurt by women, including my mother, during some of my very tender times in my teens, where my sensitivity and my overwhelm at not wanting to really be in this world were kind of driving me almost to the point where my mom found me in the kitchen with a kitchen knife to my wrists. And even though that was a cry for help, my subconscious patterns were already formed pre-7-year-old, and with my mother saying, "What are you doing?" and kind of not really staying with me to actually ask me some questions about what was really going on, just really proved my subconscious belief patterns, right? Those attachment traumas that, you see, I'm not important. My needs aren't going to be taken seriously. My cries of help go unnoticed. And I didn't have a tender or loving space to bring me back to safety. And I'm not blaming my mother. So know that I love my mother, and it's taken me years to sort of unpack this distrust around my sensitivity and how my beliefs and my awareness about how can I let other women into my life, and to be vulnerable with them, were really shaped very early on in my life. And maybe that resonates with you too, where perhaps you felt like you were wrong. So the fact that if you had a mother that always said to you, you make me sick, that it's not your fault, that maybe you felt like, oh my gosh, I need to stop loving. I need to close my heart. I need to, put heart walls up around me because people that I love, I make sick, and therefore I am sick. And I'm going to talk more about this in an upcoming free series that I have on how to heal from some of these attachment wounds and really truly love yourself again. Because if we were never shown how to love in a safe way, if we didn't have caregivers to teach us that it was safe to be loved and it was safe to receive love, we don't have a foundation on how to love ourselves. And I want you to know that this is not your fault, and the good news is that you can heal from this. But when I see woman hurting woman, and that shows up in gossip, it shows up in rejection or separation, or alienation. And I certainly had a lot of that going on in my teenage years, when my peers at school really made my life a living hell. And a lot of women teachers as well. My PE teacher pretty much supported that as well, that I wasn't okay I wasn't someone they wanted to have around. And I would just say, what's wrong with me? I just want to fit in. And of course, now I know I don't want to fit. I want to really belong to myself first before I choose to put my love out in the world, to people that are willing to receive it. But when we are wounded, we respond in fear. Hurt people because we've never been taught how to love in a good way. So we lash out and we judge and we criticize and we envy and we worry and we alienate, and we do all these places from this defensiveness of protecting our soft parts. And a lot of time unconsciously, right? We don't even know that we're running this old program of projection and assumption on others. We disregard our intuition because we're running from here rather than our hearts. And we start to withdraw and isolate and hold back, not only on others, but on loving ourselves fully. So, I understand the pain of my mother, because she was left motherless at a very young age too, and had to grow herself into womanhood. And I've done work to change that sort of ancestral or familial trauma along my own lines, by standing, in my nurturing, even though they laugh at me for being too woo and they still call me the crazy one. I can love them anyway. I can be compassionate with the parts of myself that get really triggered when I feel like that I'm being abandoned and rejected by my own sisters or my mother. And then I can start to create healthier boundaries, and empower myself to own my own sensitivity and trust my intuition, even if my family, my sisters can't see that, or my mother can't see that. So I think that we can learn a lot from our own wounded parts as women, that this isn't something that we want to deny or suppress or pretend it's not there anymore. And we certainly mustn't be afraid of it. As I said, we can't heal what we don't feel. And it's a beautiful opportunity to use this Chiron energy right now to get curious about what lies beneath the surface of the hurt, or where you distrust other women or other people, and not to abandon yourself. Really stand in your truth and stay connected to your heart. Don't go into that place where you see other women hurting other women, or manipulating other women. I've certainly seen this a lot in the life transformational spaces, and I I have been under that influence too of trusting women as mentors, as business coaches, and being made wrong, being told that, it's not money that's a problem, I am, or, that it's kind of very disheartening and very degrading of personal power when I see other women doing that to other women. But because I know what's happening on a sort of root causal level of the wounded child parts, right, where we all have created these attachment wounds as a way to protect ourselves from getting hurt again, that I can sort of move into a more compassionate place of inquiry. So if this is resonating with you, just know that if you feel some old wounds rising, not necessarily the wounded woman, but just old wounds of any sort coming up. Maybe it's father wounds, maybe it's something else that's going on. Just know that this is an opportunity for you to actually heal and transmute and integrate that and bring in all the fragmented parts and pieces of you that you're still alienating or rejecting or abandoning. And one of the first steps that you can do is just to allow yourself, hold yourself through that place where you're naturally going to want to resist. You're going to see those old triggers bring up those defensive patterns again. And then you can go, oh, there it is. And allow yourself to very gently start to get curious about what the feeling is, what the felt sense is underneath it, so that you can then go into the story that's still running your life at the age that you were when you created that belief, and reparent yourself. So don't bury your feelings in your heart and hope that they're going to go away by themselves. They can't. You need to really understand that if you were never taught to trust yourself, and your feelings are that, I can't trust myself, and I certainly can't trust other people, that it's just the law of physics, that we attracts like. And nothing happens until we start moving the energy. So we can either move the energy into more suffering, or we can move the energy into more clarity, more insight, more loving spaces. And, a great example of this is just if you kind of just imagine if you left a whole lot of stuff in the basement of your house for years and years and years. And it's not going to go away unless you move them. And I think Jan van Sant talks about clearing out the basement of your house. But just because you don't see it, it's not in your face on a regular basis, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And this is where I always say the body keeps the score. Gabor Mate's book is a great one to really start to understand this from a neuroscience point of view. That, you push it down, you suppress it, and then some event in your life is going to trigger it again, and you're going to be in it as if it happened yesterday. So it's the same with your emotions. If you just leave stuff sitting in your basement and you're not tending to it, you're not, throwing out the stuff you don't need anymore, or maybe cleaning some of the old stuff off and reworking it into a new piece of clothing, for example. Think of it like that is what you are doing with your mind, and know that you have to stay with your emotions. You have to feel them. And if there's something that hurt you when you were a child, that's an emotional wound, right? Where you created an attachment, a coping mechanism to defend yourself against ever feeling that hurt again. So time doesn't heal, it conceals until you have enough safety in your body and enough of the connection in your environment. So people that you can trust, enough connection in your physical body to be able to stay and not dissociate again or go into a shutdown or hyperarousal. And then you can start to move that energy again. So, if you're feeling like I have been this last week, where these old wounds are coming up around trusting women and betrayal and everything else, don't give your power away to her. Look to your wise woman within, right? Your wise maternal sage, your Chron inside, who doesn't disregard intuition, that stays with the fear and allows herself to use fear as fuel. She isn't waiting for somebody to save her. She honors the gifts, right, by witnessing them. And she's always questioning what else is possible. She's not questioning that she's not worthy, that she's not enough. She's listening to her intuition all the time, and she's creating new flexible boundaries where there's conflict that comes up. She's not, going to projection. She's not going into assuming that something is a certain way, and she's certainly not taking things personally. But she's looking at it from a place of, oh, here's a beautiful opportunity for me to really examine this so that I can fully integrate it, change my story, rewire my mind, reboot my brain, and come back as the wise sage, the secure mother figure that can hold that space to gently and lovingly bring you home to your heart. So, you may remember the bad things that have happened to you. And yes, even though you can't change them, you can transform how you move through them, right? You need to put that energy into action rather than putting your energy into regret or shame or blame or victimhood of why me. So be aware that where you might be going into giving your power away to the victim, to the woundedness. Of course, a lot of times it's very unconsciously. And your mind, which is a story-making machine, is always going to find proof to validate. You see, you are a victim. You need to stay stuck. And if you do, all that does is it makes you like this magnetic manifester of everything that you don't want in your life. So if you want to heal, and if you're here, you do, look at what's being victimized inside of you when you were younger. And perhaps you didn't have what you needed to keep yourself safe, or you didn't have the caregivers that could stay with you emotionally and give you the physical touch to keep you safe and hold you when you were anxious or concerned about something. And know that you can take care of yourself now. You are the wise adult that can reparent and grow your child parts up with compassion and patience that perhaps you never had when you were a child. And yes, I know this work is not easy, but it is simple. When you start to claim your power and know that your vulnerability is your strength, then you can start to understand what it means to be hurt and know that you have the power of the choice to change that. So these are the energies that are available to you right now that are going to very lovingly, and if you're not paying attention, quite, it could be quite brutal in pushing you towards paying attention and actually looking at how am I going to take a stand to do something about my past, and not from a conscious place, but from a nervous system place, so that you can start to change your circumstances by creating safety and restoring connection within yourself. And if you feel like you can't, trust me, you can. And now is the time to find that inner strength, that inner safety for yourself, to trust that you are lovable and you are worthy, and there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you. So if you are feeling like you're overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you don't have the confidence or the courage, just remember, you don't have to have it. You just have to take one step. Take a risk outside of your current zone of comfort, which is probably not comfortable if this stuff has been coming up for you. That's just an illusion. It's a false sense of safety that your mind wants you to believe is true to keep you safe from ever feeling pain again. That's just how the brain is wired. And it has nothing to do with a lack of competency, conscious competence. Okay, that's okay. You just have to take a step and start somewhere. And if you don't start, know that nothing's going to happen. It's going to keep recurring like a nightmare over and over again in various ways, shapes, and forms. And get some support. When you get started, your body's going to start giving you feedback. And if you stay on track, you're going to build that resilience muscle. You're going to start to feel more confident. But when you lack to act, despite your lack of confidence, that's where the magic happens. And if other people are taking advantage of you, now's the time to learn to say no and build healthy boundaries for yourself and for your loved ones. So if your actions and behaviors have hurt others, now's also the time to use those 5 magic and powerful little words that you can get as a free 5-part video series on my YouTube channel. Go back and honor your no, trust your no, and start practicing your no. And know that even if someone says no to you, that it doesn't mean you don't matter. It doesn't mean you're being abandoned or rejected. You're safe, and you're going to be able to start reminding your brain and your nervous system that even though that person said no, or even though I said no, I'm still alive. I'm still breathing. This didn't kill me. Okay, so if your actions and your behaviors have perhaps hurt other people, go back to those 5 basic little words. I'll post the link in the comment below. But, just soften your heart and just say, you know what, I'm so sorry for the damage I've done. How can I make this up to you? And say it like you mean it. Because, energy is a frequency, and we spell into being a vibrational frequency that, if it's out of congruence with what you're saying, creates a lot more confusion, which is probably why a lot of us with disorganized attachments have had to work at this a lot. Because intuitively we knew that what the person was saying couldn't be trusted, because in your body you could feel that the words were not true. So, not only saying I'm sorry to other people, it doesn't mean that you're forgiving the behavior. You're not saying the behavior is right. You're saying I can forgive you, not the behavior. But again, you can't forgive other people if you don't forgive yourself. So if some of your actions and your behaviors have made you feel really ashamed or guilty, remember, shame is I am wrong. Guilt is I have done something wrong. So notice where the discomfort is and ask yourself, what's going on here? Because there's something about that thing that's bringing up this feeling for you, and you could turn it around and transform it. Because your woundings are your greatest gifts, right? Your body is your greatest consciousness facilitator. And just like Chiron, who had a wounding in his thigh, it hurts to be wounded. So pay attention and give loving kindness to the wound, so that it can come out and be transformed. And remember, again, it's this double Gemini energy that's coming up today. Is we all have a shadow side to ourselves. We can't see the light if we don't see the gift in the dark, in the shadows, and we need to do the shadow work. And also to not denounce or reject or deny the parts and pieces of ourselves that we don't like, that maybe we're being triggered when we see them in other women. So see everything as a gift. It's not a place for shame or judgment, or it's not about right or wrong. It's just about, wow, what a beautiful awareness that you're being given at this time to actually recognize what's going on unconsciously, and then know how you're going to take inspired action that's aligned with the truth of who you're being. I'm still working through my own wounds daily. But the beautiful thing is that it doesn't have to take lifetimes or years of therapy. If you're practicing this, you're doing the training on a daily basis from a place of curiosity, right? That innocence of the child. And to really just honor the spaces where your attention is being drawn, and just say, wow, thank you so much. What a gift in that. So I guess I think that's really, I feel like I'm complete, but just know, what kind of world do you want to create? What kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of people do you want to attract into your life, whether they're friends or lovers or clients or allies? Start calling in what you want, and get really clear on what you want. And I think that's, again, is the gift of being wounded, is you know what you don't want, so that you can then start to be very clear in what you're asking to manifest, what you're asking to bring into your life and into your body and into this beautiful place of creating safe connections. So, I witness this all the time on so many women that come to work with me. I think we share, we have a lot in common as far as our cynicism and our skepticism and our distrust about other women, especially. So we all want the same thing. We want to reclaim trust in ourselves so that we can trust other people. We want to transform through trauma and use the gift of everything that's built us into the woman that we are today, in claiming our power so that we can go out and share that with other people in the world. So, forgive yourselves for ever thinking that you need, that you need to change, or that you're somehow flawed or weak, because no matter how much work you do, these things are still trickling up to the surface. We're not wrong. We're just human. And when we're reminded of our soft animal body, we're reminded of our humanity. We can connect back in with our empathy and our compassion for all of us doing the best that we have with what we have, and not knowing until we know. So, I hope that resonated with you. Just trust, that when you stand in the truth of who you are, wounded in all, with all your battle scars showing, there's a wisdom in what each of those challenges have given you. And you're taking the first step just by starting to ask the questions rather than spiritually bypassing or trying to avoid feeling anything in your life. When you start to do this, you slowly start to come out of that freeze state. We start to thaw out our hearts again. The barriers, the heart walls start to come down again, and we start to feel fulfilled and alive. So be gentle with yourself. And if nobody told you today, I see you, I love you, I honor you, know that you're making a difference, and go out there and be you, because there's not people out there looking for some version of you. They're looking for you and what only you have to give to the world. Hello, Daisy. So weird how my little dog comes in every time I'm about to finish this, because I guess she feels the energy of completion. All right. And I'd love to know your insights, your comments, your questions about wounding, healing your own old wounds, the Chiron energy that's coming up, any ways that you have perhaps healed the parts of you that have been betrayed and hurt or alienated or exiled by other women. And remember too, we come from the witches that weren't burnt at the stakes. And our bodies, our DNA hold that blueprint of not only the wisdom that we learn from them, but also their own hurts and their own traumas and their own betrayals and persecutions as well. And, we're changing that by showing up now and working on ourselves so that future generations in our families don't need to keep on carrying and perpetuating those old wounds. So keep going and know the power of choice is yours and yours alone. All right. Take care. Bye.